Thank you for joining me again for the podcast. This is number 10. As you know, I took a few weeks off in doing these. They're also known as the Fireside Chats. Before I go any further, let me ask you please to subscribe. It's free. Some people have an idea that it's not, but it is free. It only is there to let you know when another podcast is put on, so that you'll be aware of it. And the podcasts do take time to make, and I do so in an attempt to make a difference, no matter how small or large. And subscribing lets me know people care, and I'm making a dent, even if it were to be a small one. It lets others know that there's need and or help with these inspirational videos during these difficult times. My web page is being updated, www.marvinfaulkner.com. It informs you as to how to order a book and a little bit about me and the books. My Facebook page also does the same. That's just Marvin Faulkner. And I need to make a note just to let you know I've given many of the books away to patients that needed them. The need is there, and if they can't afford it, they just can't afford it. And I give it to those also that probably could afford it, but I want the message to get out because I believe strongly in it and that it was inspired. And sharing is what matters. So I'm going to go ahead and dedicate this podcast today to a patient of mine. I walked in the room and I was kind of wanting to know, when I took the break. One weekend I just didn't feel up to it, to be quite honest, and then the other 2 weekends I was kind of wait and see if people were still going back and listening to the other podcast, if the numbers were continuing to go up, and they were. And I also wanted to see if anybody would mention it to me, so I kind of stayed quiet about it. And then I walked into a room, and one of my favorite patients was there because she always comes in smiling, no matter what her state is or other things that are going on in her life. And so she asked me about the podcast, and I said, well, I haven't been making them. She said, would you please go ahead and continue? I need it now more than ever. I've been listening to them, and I really look forward to them. So I said, okay. And I said, what's going on? And she let me know that her daughter had been molested and raped. And I guess she only escaped through the back door. It was a miracle that she got away from this guy. And this gentleman went on this person. He went on to Wichita and did the same thing to a grandmother there. And a grandson ran for help. And so that's how, with an 8-hour standoff with the police, that's how the grandmother actually survived. So he was on parole, and he's back in prison, apparently where he belongs. And this kind of reminds me of the so-called defunding of the police. So much for that. But I have to be careful what I say, because any comment, can be taken the wrong way. And all I can say is that the police were there, they were needed, they were there, and they were called upon. And I shouldn't even have to say this, but the patient is black, and so is her daughter, or is her daughter. So it's obvious that we need law and order. So I will dedicate this to her. She is a true Oscar winner, because she comes in and presents herself as happy and laughing, even when life has, not only her physical health, but her life emotionally and psychologically has turned into this. So what a year we've had with COVID-19. the rioting, the polarized election, even in death. And what I am going to cover, since I can't cover it all, is this idea of systemic racism. I can only pray that God will touch your heart regarding your vote on November the 3rd. And I myself have been plagued by this. I served in the military, and it's unbelievable, really, but I've only voted once in my lifetime. It was for Reagan. 12-year Democrat turned into a Republican, and I have been polarized ever since, not really knowing what to do, attempting to find the truth amongst the lies. And I guess that's what we're told, basically, are lies. And so one wants to wonder, who actually represents us? Do they actually tell us the truth in anything, or is it just fiction? What hurt me, though, was that I was told that I was apathetic and that I was discourteous to those in Arlington Cemetery who had given their lives for our right to vote. So I did register, and I really have struggled off and on with knowing what to do. And I suppose at this point all I can really ask myself is, who would China or Russia, rather have as our president? Other than that, I really have nothing to say, as these inspirational messages are not to be a political platform. I'm going to refer to my book in this podcast, Letter to God. I'm actually going to read just a short portion from it. I was scheduled to give a lot of readings, and they were all canceled secondary to the COVID. So I've never really read from the book in any of the other podcasts, so I guess it's probably only appropriate that I take a few paragraphs from it. And Letter to God was noted to be a memoir, but it really had so many chapters that really had to do with racism and integrity and things, and it was just my ideas about all of it, not just my own personal life. And Matthew Mcconaughey has got a memoir coming out, and there's no doubt that his will gain much more attention than mine, simply because he's Matthew and I'm not. And will I know that it's any better than mine? I guess it's a matter of perception. I'll have to get it and read it and see what he wrote about. But I look at these people that are, whether they're athletes or others, that are glorified and put up on pedestals, and I wonder, really, is that appropriate to the degree that it is done? But I will say that I can at least comment, because I did make a movie. I did write it and produce it, an independent film, so I do have a little bit of an idea of what it's like to make a movie. We didn't have much of a budget, and we didn't have much of a crew for support. But I will say, overall, in making the movie, it was not as difficult as the many years that it took me to get through medical school. So I can at least offer my objective opinion about that. So, but I like Matthew, and I wish him nothing but the best. And I just hope he's benevolent and giving, like I always do to anyone that's managed to have success in this life. Back to the topic of the systemic racism. Do I believe that systemic racism actually exists? And systemic, as a physician, it's from nose to toes. It's all over your body. A systemic infection. So I just don't believe that it's systemic, and I think I can say that honestly because of my own element of shock when I saw what happened to Mr. George Floyd. If we were systemic and I knew it, then why would I have been shocked? And I mean, I was literally shocked, and I wasn't the same for 2 weeks. I didn't think things like that existed anymore. I thought we had evolved beyond that. And so I think it's more like the COVID. It's like we now have hot pockets. We have areas of concern. But it's not all over the place like it was initially. And I look at racism like that. It must still be there. I mean, it has to be. But there must be just pockets of it because there's too many people that I know that just simply aren't racist, and I'm not either. And I mean, I dated a black woman. I mean, I thought she was very, very nice. I didn't think anything about it. And I mean, it was just our collective choice at the time with family issues we had going on between us that we didn't elect to continue. But I mean, I didn't think a thing about the color of her skin. And that's, even if society hasn't completely evolved, I mean, I certainly don't have any of it myself. So I will take just a few ideas from the chapter 20 on racism and share those with you. All blood is red. Passion makes the world go round. Love just makes it a safer place. Iced tea. And I've already shared with you a quotation from Martin Luther King that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Martin Luther certainly fought a passionate battle. We've had recently books come out on believing in the positive, that you can make demands of the universe and just your mere thoughts can turn things around, where you can have a abundant life. And there's certainly an element of truth in so-called positive thinking, but I also believe that within it lies a great lie. We live in the world, night falls here. To believe that positive thinking results in only positive things is just simply not realistic. I mean, we're imperfect, the world's imperfect. So the key is to take the trials and tribulations and turn them around. Make them work for you rather than against you. So confusion, love, hatred all coexist. So, you know, you're not going to just get what you want because of positive thinking. You just let God be supreme and let the universe remain unknown. Our duty lies in the way we deal with things. We do know we need to quit hating and make an effort to love. So I truly cannot understand racism, since we all have a time to be born and a time to die. And again, I remind you that our color of blood is all red. So we're just here together, and we're trying to help one another. We should be along the way. So what good is the hatred, the shootings, the inflicted pain, and the evil? I mean, Hitler came to his end by suicide, and the only legacy that he left was madness. For me personally, I was born in the South and raised in the North. And I never really wanted to know that much about the Civil War because I knew what it stood for. And I may have had, you know, relatives that fought on both sides. I really don't know. I never really wanted to know if any relative of mine had anything to do with the slavery of another human. The whole process of that just simply sickens me. And I take solace in knowing that members of my so-called race did fight and die standing against it. So I have no problem with the Confederate flag being placed in a museum where I think it belongs. It's a part of our history. Just a reminder not only of our stains, but also of our victories, of what we fought for and won. That's why I thought that we had evolved past certainly anything like systemic racism. So the country was divided at the time, and divided we fall, together we stand. We serve the stripes and what they stand for, or at least what they're meant to stand for. So sometimes religions become so radical that even in the radical Islamic movement where people behead others, I mean, this is not conducive with love. And I beg to ask what type of heaven these people are going to, and what type of afterlife would celebrate this, and what kind of place it would actually be. And it would have nothing to do with love. But maybe hating is easier than finding a reason to love. Because humans, maybe we're just lazy, and perhaps that's our greatest offense, is just to take the easier way out. But I would ask you to make a choice, and to make one that represents love. As humans, we are simply too quick to judge, to find fault, make excuses, rather than find legitimate reasons. When I was young, up there near Chicago, I was mugged. I was kicked and slapped around by both white and black gangs. And I remembered the hate and the prejudice, and you know what? It all felt the same. I mean, the punches and the kicks, they both hurt, white or black. And I was proud to know, though, that my two best friends in the military, they were black, and Darrell Bass and Kevin Galt, they were my best friends. And if I'd had to go to war, I couldn't have thought to be with anybody else but those two, because they loved me so. So I think that we need to move forward, expressing values and beliefs that matter and that are given in love. And Martin Luther King gave his life for this, to stop racism, and Abe Lincoln, of a different race, he did the same. So I think that I'm only going to share with you one out of 3 examples that I gave in the book, to try to keep it as short as possible. And I do believe that there could be something embedded in people just by this so-called covert. I've given it a name, covert racism. Let's say that you're white, and as a youth you were beaten and robbed by a black gang. Your mother, nursing your wounds, throws out some racial slurs. Your father comes home and in anger reinforces the idea that anyone black cannot be trusted. Another racial slur is uttered, and through fear you become a covert racist. You grow up with this experience imprinted in your memory bank. Decades later you experience a heart attack. And once you are in the emergency room and your diagnostic workup is complete, you're told that you need an emergency cardiac bypass surgery. Without hesitation, the ER physician tells you that the #1 heart surgeon in the region is available. Find out he's black. So what's your choice? Do you choose him? Or because you are a covert racist, someone else? It's just one example. I give 3 using other races. And this ignorance is just prevailing. Only upon admission of this covert tendency can we deal openly with it. To admit that this thought pattern exists is our only hope of curing the disease of racism. And I ask you to take no part in it, because it has nothing to do with love. So a lot of different topics talked about and discussed in my book, a so-called Letter to God. So we cannot legislate morality, we cannot legislate integrity nor racism. These qualities must come one soul at a time. And it has to be the collective choice of people that refuse to fall into these negatives and choose love. Be kind, be merciful, love, despite race or color. I mean, don't even notice it. I do believe that well, it's just obvious. I mean, I guess there continues to be racism. These pockets, these groups. I mean, it was obvious in the death of Mr. Floyd. But systemic, no. I don't agree that it's a pandemic like the COVID, that it's not an overall stain on our country, that surely we've at least evolved some. And I rather believe that there just remain small groups or hotspots, so to speak, just like the COVID-19. People involved in these patterns need to remove this mask. I mean, not the one that we're using to protect one another from the COVID, but the one they hide behind. They need to choose love. I mean, it's your choice, so make it. Again, we bleed red, so we're all born to die. So, I mean, if we're to have, if we can check the weather and see that there's some sort of global warming, then why can't we have some global warming with regard to the way we treat one another? And if China wants only one sun in the sky, not all Chinese people, but their government, their communist regime, I mean, are they not of the understanding that the sun gives warmth to us all? And so, I mean, that alone should let us know that as the sun warms us, we should also offer warm and tender guidance and love to one another. And please tell me what is supreme about white supremacy. I mean, this is not like a pizza with all the toppings on it. I mean, this is empty of any ingredients at all other than hatred. And these black gangs in the inner city and other types of racial gangs, I mean, that they kill someone to become a member. I mean, how incredibly cowardly. I mean, how extremely and grotesquely rude. I mean, do we need to spill a bunch of red blood so that we might prove we're all the same? And we are on the inside. All of our so-called coverings without a kind of merciful heart. I mean, it's just vanity. It's an ugly, superficial reminder that we are just shallow and doomed to die in agony with no hope for our souls whatsoever. So we need to evolve from this, and I thought we had, but it's clear that everyone hasn't. And for those of you who have not, shame on you. I mean, shame on you for keeping this hatred alive. We know that through love we can beat this. We know we can evolve. All we have to do is offer love. I mean, I, quite frankly, have always felt I had a special connection with black people. And I never really understood it. But I think I kind of get it now. I mean, I have unknowingly realized that they had soul. Like Motown. I mean, they have soul. And you know why? I think it's because of their overall suffering. And I'm just really happy for the memory that I had at B.B. King's in Memphis, Tennessee. That I had a chance to dance with a black female while Purple Rain was being played by a gentleman with a guitar behind his back and a 12-piece band. I mean, that was one of the most fun nights I've ever had. And I can tell you, I have enjoyed dancing like that, with the exception of dancing with my daughters at their weddings. I mean, I loved it. I'll never forget it. I mean, it's etched in my mind. It's one of the really greatest nights of my life. And I'm asking you, I mean, don't you care to dance? I mean, learn to love and drive out these so-called hot spots and these places where that racism still exists. I mean, choose to dance with love. I mean, she had soul, and she could dance. And I'm happy that she thought that this white boy could dance too. Hit the subscribe button, please. May God help you on November the 3rd. May God enter your heart, dance from your soul like the music from Motown. Because like that music, and like what we supposedly accomplished in the Civil War, it will set you free. It will set you free. Thank you. God bless you. Subscribe. Check out the website, Facebook page, and continue to push the message forward for others that are like-minded. God bless. Good night.